So, we're about to start, which means we'll go live. So, are we? Yes. Just in terms of health and safety, if there's an earthquake, obviously drop cover and hold. And our meeting point outside is just out in the car park on the St Asaph side of the building. So we are live. That means that various speakers will go on. We'll invite people to the table and so on, and go through the process. I'm going to open with the Mihi Whakatau. So tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa, e aku nui, e aku rahi. Tēnā koutou, kua haere mai nei, e tēnei rā. Tēnā koe te maunga, whakaruru hau, maunga tere. Tēnā koe te awa, rako huri e rere rā. Ka maumahara ngā mate o te wā, moi mai rā. Tiaki te whenua, tiaki ngā arawai, tiaki te takutai moana me te rangi. Noi reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I actually forgot the Mihi Whakatau. the whakatauki. I'll do the whakatauki actually because I do have it and it's a nice one. So tiaki te whenua, tiaki ngā arawai, tiaki te takutai moana me te rangi. Kia ora. So we were going to be scheduled today for 2 hours, but there's been a reschedule for the dangerous dams deliberations, and that's going to start at 11:30. And so we'll adjourn our meeting if we haven't got through the papers, which I suspect will be the case. We'll adjourn at 11:30. And then we will reconvene at 3:15 on Wednesday, the 13th of November. So that's next week to conclude any papers that are still on our agenda. Apologies. So we have an apology for absence from Councillor Swiggs, who can now see sitting at the end of the table. So he's actually here. And Councillor Davies is an apology. He's travelling and he might come in at times if he's able. Can I ask, do we have any conflicts of interest? Oh, Councillor Cranwell. I think Councillor Cranwell is also an apology. Again, may come in. So any conflicts of interest? Nope. We haven't got any public forum or deputations or petitions today. No extraordinary or urgent business. And so we'll move into item 6, which is the notice of motion from Councillors Scott and Councillor Ward. Oh, Councillor Burns.
Could I please have it noted in relation to the adjournment today after an hour that there is some concern about the fact that it is a committee meeting and we are adjourning for something else. It is the second time in a couple of weeks. And I'm certainly concerned it might appear to be the creation of a pattern. Thank you.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. Thank you.
In this case, it's for a council meeting on deliberation, so it's just because it's in the schedule, you just got to sort of do it. So it is full council business, yeah.
Thank you, I understand.
Microphone. Right, so notice of motion. So thank you for that point and clarification. But we'll move on to notice of motion. So Councillors Scott and Ward, do we have it? Yep. So we've got the notice of motion up on the screen. So would you like?
So I'll move that, Vicky, and
okay.
And just and so thank you for Madam Chair for accepting this notice of motion. I know it is reasonably short notice, but we are also in a bit of a crisis when it comes to wilding pine control and getting on top of the issue that we have in front of us. And so I brought this into this meeting with some urgency and noted your help also, Madam Chair, in making sure that we could get a report back on the 27th of November, which is a really good turnaround. So thank you for doing that. Basically, the responsibility for this issue in terms of the biosecurity issue around this sits with us. We're second-tier responders to the Ministry of Primary Industries, and numerous attempts that we've made with the Ministry of Primary Industries to get funding support so that we can continue this work seems to be not falling on deaf ears. We are getting a semblance of reply, but the national response to Wild and Conifers is only a $10 million fund, and a couple of times that we've talked to Minister Hogarth, that seems to be where it's at. So this attempt here is an opportunity for us to actually get ourselves back on track. My main concerns with these are fourfold. We will lose all the gains that we have made, and we've spent about $170 million on wilding pines, and the advice that we've had internally and also externally is that we will fall back, and that $170 million gain will be for nothing. We're starting to lose amenity value in the Mackenzie with the amount of wilding pines there, and it's not totally visible. You can see it from the main road, but totally visible. But where we have concentrated on taking seed stock out, the regrowth, which is just coming through now, is phenomenal. And wildings grow really, as you will know, they'll grow really, really quickly. And although some of it is visible from the main road, a lot of it across the district is not visible. We'll also start to lose the biodiversity values that we have in the Mackenzie because we will have increased cover for predators, and it will start to take over some of that landscape, which is so valued by so many people across New Zealand. Increased predator habitat, and on the third thing is a loss of hydro efficiency across the Mackenzie, where the watershed will be interrupted by pines that take some of that valuable water that comes down through the Mackenzie through that numerous power stations. And I would just go back to a comment made by the Prime Minister at Local Government New Zealand Conference, outlined what central government was doing around water, transport, resilience and regulation to free up, if you like, the economy. And his comments were, so we are doing our part. I believe it is time for local government to do theirs. Well, you know, councillors, this is our part. It is a different way of doing things, but this is our responsibility. Thank you.
So thanks for that, Councillor Scott. So I have Councillor Ward. Would you like to second? Would you like to talk? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, councillors. In a recent letter addressed to Minister Nicola Willis on behalf of the Mackenzie Wild and Free Trust, we calculated the potential loss of revenue from hydro generation alone from the Upper Waitaki catchment could be in the tune of $230 million within 5 years, and could be over $300 million within 10 years from a lack of control of the wilding pines and the invasive spread. All we are asking for is a backing as a council to allow Environment Canterbury to use its balance sheet to borrow $20 million, underwritten by MPI, who will over 5 to 8 years period pay the principal and full interest back. I always ask the question when I sit on a board or a committee around the table, would I put my own money into this project or venture? And the question is yes. They, as Peter has alluded to, propose a huge fire risk. They're environmentally challenging. We're about to lose key staff from our contractor who undertakes the control program because he has no more funding available to do key work. And that in itself is a huge risk, because then where do you find those key staff? It's hard to attract key staff to a community like the Mackenzie or Twizel, and so we've got to protect that as well. And also know in a year like this where we've had over 400 millimetres of rain in the last 8 weeks and a warm spring, that wilding pines, the seedlings, will take off and flourish. I know others around this table will be thinking of all the other potential business opportunities this organisation could look at, but there's always a but. If we don't do something, all that money that we've spent up to now, we will lose 30% of that value per year. So within 3 years, we'll be back to base one. We will be paid back over 5 to 8 years, as I've said, at no cost to our ratepayers. So all we are asking for is your support on a huge problem. Our Mackenzie community is worried about this huge biosecurity issue. I encourage your total support on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sunkel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my 6 years on the Upper Waitaki Zone Committee from 2016 to 22, I had the opportunity on a monthly basis to witness the transformation in the reduction of wilding pines. And for me, seeing that transformation and the money that we have spent just means that we should continue, and if we can utilise our balance sheet with central government then coming back in to fund and back it up, then I think it's imperative that we do. It is one of our core functions. The transformation, the reduction of those trees and wilding pines has been absolutely incredible, and I would hate to see it revert to what it is. So I support the motion. Thank you.
And Councillor Mackay? No? Oh, sorry, was it? Korako. Sorry, I knew there was a hand in that corner.
E mihi atu kia koe o te tiamana. Tuatahi o te mate o te whānui o kaitau ka te mamoi Waitaha me tō whare kauri re kohu. Nō reira haere atu rā e George Gooms me Gomez. Nō reira e George haere atu rā ki te pāta whakawairua, takoto. Takoto I rangi mare I rungi tō waka, wai atu tō waka ko tō tārai haere atu rā. I just want to acknowledge the passing actually on a dreadful accident actually late last week of George Gooms from Tuahuriri, but also Whare Kauri, Re Kohu, Chatham Islands as well, from the Gooms family, and also Gomez as well, which is the same whānau. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. First of all, I want to now speak to the notice of motion, and I have been in consultation with 3 runanga actually who form part of the runanga, or 2 of them anyway, around the takiwā of the Mackenzie, and they being Arowhenua, Waihau, and also Moiraki. The consensus with them is that they totally tautoko support this notice of motion. One of the things that was really important to them is that you've got a non-native species actually that needs to be exterminated. So that's the first thing. But the second part of it is that in my consultation with Papatupu Runanga, it was very much about the responsibility of Canterbury Regional Council in ensuring that all of the gains to date and the costing of around circa $170 million is actually not lost. And so that was a really important point that they took on board. The other one was about the whenua, and particularly around what the wilding pines do is actually create better habitats for predators. That was the other one. There was also the concern around the hydro efficiency as well, and not so much actually around the generators. It was also about the streams and creeks, around the mahinga kai, and what it does actually to them. So they were aware of that. The other part of it is that one of the things that they asked is this only in the Mackenzie? And I said, well, 70% of the issue is in the Mackenzie, but it is actually the Canterbury Regional Council rohe, right across the board, which would take in the other 7 Papatupu Runanga. The other part of it was that the cost actually to ratepayers was another one, and all these points pretty much have been mentioned, and I just want to highlight them, is that Papatupu Runanga find commonality with all of them. So I'm saying that Papatupu Runanga completely tautoko this or support this notice of motion. Kia ora. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Mackenzie?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I support implicitly the intent of the motion, and Councillor Scott, Karakia and Ward and Sunkel have expressed all the reasons why we should support this. But I want to propose an additional note 4, and which would be something along the lines that we'd like to note that the most deficient or delinquent landowner in controlling wilding pines is the Crown, because I think that justifies note 3, and it makes sure that we're not in pushing this process. Because the only bit I don't actually necessarily agree with Nook about is that actually it's the Canterbury Regional Council's responsibility. I think we have a joint responsibility with the Crown to control the invasive wilding pines. But in fact, given that most of the land where the wilding pines are out of control now is actually Crown land, we need to make it very clear to central government that they have a responsibility here. Because I'm just nervous about note 3, which says they're going to pay us back. I want to make sure that they understand in Wellington that they are responsible for that. So I would like to propose an additional note 4 with the support of the mover and seconder.
Well, just in terms of sort of process and standing orders, we can't make an amendment to a notice of motion once it's been moved and seconded. So we can't add that's in the standing orders 27.4. So it's different from papers from our usual papers. It's a notice of motion. So but you've verbally said it, and the MPI are being requested to essentially fund it, but just spread over time, aren't they? So the government is being recognised as
So you're saying you can't amend a motion after it's been...
Not in the notice of motion, not at this point.
Well, perhaps, with the greatest respect, you should have given us the opportunity to do that, but okay.
Sorry, I hadn't realised. I did work with the two.
Look, Madam Chair, can I support the fact that Councillor Mackenzie is trying to help in this situation? Yep. The way the notice of motion has been written is, in fact, the opportunity in the first instance to get an agreement that we could proceed with this process with central government. But obviously, staff advice would mean there was a massive conversation will have to happen with ministers and others. We're doing a bit of that behind the scenes, but it will be contingent on what you were saying also, Ian, because why would we spend that amount of money and leave that seed stock on Doc and Lynn's land? So I accept what you're trying to do, but thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Can I let everyone have their say something first? And if you want another go, yeah.
Is there, just checking with governance, is there a way, can you do a separate resolution though? So if Ian's point was supported, could it be a separate resolution after the notice of motion? Can we do that?
Yes, you can do another motion afterwards, yes.
So that might be a possible solution. So get through this, and then if the council wants to make a separate resolution in relation to that, we could potentially. And we could have an adjournment just to get the wordings right if we had to, potentially.
Yeah, if it's considered really, I am conscious we've got 3 people in the room who are interested in the dust paper, and the problem of having a shortened time frame for the meeting. Yeah. So I mean, really, Councillor Mackenzie, it's whether you really want that we can figure out a process and words and so on at this point, or whether staff have heard what you've just said, and when the report comes back to that 27th of November meeting, there's an opportunity there.
So it seems to me from what Councillor Scott said that November the 27th meeting, did you say?
Yes. Yeah.
Will be coming back, so we can add it in there to expedite today's meeting.
Yes.
That seems fine.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Okay. And Councillor Chair Pauling, you wanted to speak to this as well.
I got a couple of questions as well. Just look, in terms of the MPI stuff, how far progressed are those discussions?
So we've had so the MP for Waitaki, Miles Anderson, who's at the centre of these discussions with him, was taking the issue to Minister Macleay last week. Minister Hoggard is aware of this. I'm not too sure where Minister Potaka or Minister Penk sit in terms of Linz and Dock, but and I wouldn't expect a massively quick response until we've made our decision, because this really is testing a relationship that we have with central government around the fact that we can do this, but we need coverage. I mean, that's essentially just a simple conversation.
Thank you. And and it sounds really good. In terms of the 20 million, is that for the whole country or just Canterbury?
So the issue that we have, Chair, is the fact that in the past where we've had big dollops of money put into these programs, it's become a gold rush. And so some of the staff advice that we would seek, it's not here because we don't want to notice a motion that's 3 pages long, but some of the staff advice we would seek would be how that money could be drawn down over a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years to be used most effectively. Because at the moment, as Councillor Ward has said, one of the things that we're lacking is there's not a workforce there to jump on it. We were lucky during COVID that there were people around that could adapt really quickly to this. We're in a different situation now.
Thank you. And can I just ask one more question? And so that sounds really good about the drawdown over a longer period, because I was interested in that, because the payback period over that 8 to 10 years. But of course, and I think this could be something the paper, if it goes through, could discuss, is obviously the benefits for this go much broader and longer than that, potentially. Yeah.
So I guess staff will tell you this, that the wilding pine cycle is that seed stock destruction. So once you get rid of the seed stock, there's almost like an 8-year period that you have to actually pay attention to what's going on there, so that the viability, and I know obviously Carl sitting down, he knows much more than me about this. The viability of seed is after an 8-year period, it becomes not as viable as what it was. So the problem that we're having with this sort of funding is that we're missing bits, and as Councillor Wood said, we've had a massively good spring up there, and this is going to be a massive seed disruption. So this is also an attempt for us to actually do this in a pragmatic way with the right workforce and the right tools. Now, I think MPI, when we met with MPI and discussed this issue with them, there was a nodding of heads. But of course, officials can't accept the fact that this is an opportunity that they can have anything to do with until the minister agrees.
Got it. So yeah, I really do support testing that relationship with the Crown in terms of seeing if they would support this, but using a mechanism in partnership. So on that note, I'm pretty happy to support that part of it. So thank you. And note what Councillor Mackenzie said in terms of really getting Docklands and other Crown agencies to buy in and support this. So kia ora.
So Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I'm the same. I think there's just so many questions that need answering in a report to come back. For example, if this is just for Canterbury, does that mean we're divulging or getting ourselves out of that national program and focusing only on Canterbury? I'm slightly concerned about the fact that we have an agreement, but we don't have an agreement with MPI. I haven't seen any paperwork to suggest what the terms of a payback might be, in fact, even if they're going to pay back a loan. I also worry about the things like, for example, and this is a personal opinion on this, every time it's dry, every time it's wet, every time it's windy, the public purse, people put their hands out for a handout. Is this just another attempt to get a handout to do something which, if you look at the 21-22 Wilding Pine annual report, that group annual report, I couldn't find anything on Canterbury, but certainly in Otago in 2017, there was about 400,000 hectares in Otago that was in an area of watch. 200,000 of that was public land, 200,000 of that was private land. The private land component has continued to increase dramatically on there and forecast to do even more out to 2035. Councillor Ward said that obviously we're looking at other business opportunities. I would hardly call this a business opportunity. I personally think it's a black hole, not dissimilar to things like what have we had? We've had the bovine stuff that's cost us the country almost $1 billion. There's a whole heap of stuff that we just seem to want to throw money at. And I suppose the one thing that I don't understand is this government, if they can throw $2.5 billion at landlords a year, how can they not have $20 million, sort of underwrite $20 million for this group? I don't see how it's a ratepayer issue. Thanks. But again, those are the sorts of things I'd be looking at if a report is to come back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Edge.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, I acknowledge the comments from Peter Scott, Councillor Scott, Councillor Ward and others about the seriousness of this issue in mid-Canterbury, especially in the Mackenzie area. But this biosecurity issue is of national significance, and my understanding is that a large portion of the area covered by the pines is government Crown land, administered by either LINZ or the Department of Conservation. And here we are with our ratepayers being expected to use their balance sheet to fund something that the government clearly is responsible for addressing. So when staff come back with a report about this, it's going to be really important that it's very clear of how, if we do loan the government $20 million, which seems absurd, which is effectively what we're doing, loaning them that kind of money and getting some interest back on it, and the principal as well. And that does bother me a little bit, that we're showing that we're doing this. So I think that's really important that it's very clear that MPI come back to us on that. My query would be, when the staff come back with a report, that I'd like to see some spatial planning maps about where the issues are, where the land ownership is, and where the clearance has been made, and there's new stuff coming through. So just to understand that, because I'm thinking, well, where do we spend that money? Do we spend it on non-Crown land? I suppose that's what I'm getting back, and that would be good to see as part of a report. So in effect, it becomes the use of that money, if we do it, is a targeted approach on a certain type of land. But look, it's it's an odd situation. I can understand the frustration of councillors in South Canterbury, but I think really it is about making sure that we are targeting it in the right place for the benefit of Canterbury, but that we should not be expecting to deal with Crown land issues on Crown land.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Robinson. And then I am actually going to... Oh, Councillor East wants to speak as well. Oh, and Councillor Swiggs. Yep.
Oh, mine's was really quick. Yeah, Councillor Burns stole a bit of my thunder. However, because I've been analysing too the Otago versus Canterbury situation, from what I gather, and Department of Conservation is sort of controlling or the funding and the strategy behind public land in the Mackenzie for wilding pine, and ECAN and LINZ is responsible for just the basin area. I'm wondering if that is still the case, and what sort of percentage of public-private conifer prevalence is there. I'd like to see that come back too from the staff at some point for November, late November. But yeah, I'm interested in just seeing what's there and what we can do, if we can do anything.
So, Councillor Swiggs.
Yeah, all I was just going to say is I just wanted to understand, and I don't think I need an answer here, but just if there was a conversation with the Otago Regional Council in terms of what we're doing here, and because there is a border there, and obviously these things cross borders, so I just want to make sure that that conversation gets had at some stage as well in terms of this, and how that links into our biodiversity strategy and our regional pest management strategies, potentially being a bit more overarching as well.
Thank you. And Councillor East. Did you want to speak, Councillor East? Yep.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I think this is obviously an issue that if we don't address it is going to have some monumental repercussions, and we'll be back looking for more and more money to deal with it if we don't progress things reasonably quickly. I am not in favour of asking staff for further reports on this. We've got a notice of motion in front of us that seeks the ability to fund the project, and I'm sure there's a plethora of information already out there on where and how we should be spending it, and we'll be acting upon that. But to be asking staff to come back with reports is adding months and months and months to the issue, in which time the problem just exacerbates further. So I'm totally in support of getting this notice of motion through today, so that we can actually get a fix on this problem and get on with doing something about it, rather than procrastinating and asking for report on report on report before we even get anywhere near dealing with the project.
Okay, just to clarify, we're Strategy and Policy Committee, and so we can't make funding decisions, and hence it is coming back on the 27th, which is 11 days away. And we do need advice from our finance team on this and the appropriateness and how that will work. And I think there's also, my question was really around, how do we get the certainty that MPI will actually underwrite this? And so that's obviously a piece of work that needs to be done. And, good on you guys for looking into this. So I think we've just, do you need to do the mover want to say some more?
Just one thing, I think that we don't want to get too wide on the discussion on this until we get a staff report on it. Yep. I think what we're doing is proposing a mechanism to do this, which is rating neutral. If it is not rating neutral, then we don't do it. And we have the opportunity, and if we don't take the opportunity, then all the discussions we have about biodiversity and what we're going to do with it are for nothing, because this is our biggest threat.
Now, I feel like the table could vote on this, and I think I know which way I'll go. If Nook and Councillor Ward really need to say so, I am conscious we've got a dust paper which has got a lot to go through.
Yeah, no, I just got one which was originally brought up by Chair Pauling, is that I support the fact is that when the paper does come back, well, then there's the opportunity to actually have a resolution in there, particularly about just acknowledging the fact about the Crown and the responsibility the Crown has in this, and particularly because Papatupa Runanga would support that, because this is only one rodeo, but there's actually quite a number of them where it actually is about, and this is about whenua Māori as well, is about LINZ and also DOC, and how they actually need to form closer partnerships actually and acknowledge the problem, that a lot of the problem actually comes from Crown land. So it's not poking the bear, it's actually reminding them about the fact of their responsibility. Finally, what I've heard a number of people speak about is, and I understand where Councillor Edge is coming from, but there's a really important word in number 3 there of the notice of motion. And all this is contingent on the Ministry of Primary Industries and all of that. So that'll come back in the report. But a couple of others is reflecting on how you can make something possible actually impossible with some of the comments. Kia ora.
Cool, thank you. So my wonka, I think if if we're able to persuade DOC to put more money into some of their land and perhaps in more than just wilding pines, I think that would be a very good outcome. For as long as I've been in New Zealand, DOC has been woefully underfunded. So, you know, if we can take this, maybe we'll trigger something across New Zealand and all the regional councils can find a way of forcing the hand, which would be fantastic. So can we take all those in favour of this notice of motion? Please say aye.
Aye.
Councillor Dice, could you just unmute and give your opinion? Aye.
Against.
Against. Okay, thank you. So. You didn't say against, not when you go to. And yeah, I hadn't got to that bit yet. Sorry, I was checking. Councillor Dice came off online. Okay, so can I have those against, please? So we've got Dice, Burns, Robinson. That's all? Yep. Okay, kia ora. Got that? Okay, so then moving on to the minutes. So this is item 7. Does anyone have any edits, amendments that are needed in there that have been seen? No, I think it's a no. So can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes, please? So Councillor Robinson, Councillor Mackenzie. So all those in favour for the passing the minutes, please say aye. Any against? No, so that's passed, carried. Thank you. Okay, so now moving on to item 8. So this is a report on a dust literature review, report that we had done previously and that we're now looking at the next steps. I'd just like to acknowledge that we have Dr. Cheryl Brunton, who's the Medical Officer for Health from Te Whataora in the room. We also have Don Chittock from Fulton Hogan and Jeff Blewett from PDP. So thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate you being present in person. So can I invite the relevant staff? Let me find my page. So would Jessie and Delinica please come to the table? So strategy advisor. So if you'd like to introduce, I'll perhaps flag as well, because do we put the recommendations up on screen while they speak? After. If you could actually, yes, can we put them up on the screen? And the reason why, so the paper as came out on the agenda, there's been some work done on the recommendations. So those recommendations, as we're now proposing them, as staff are now putting them, are up on the screen, and you can see in red the changes that have been made. And so Jessie will talk to those amendments as well while he's presenting. So Jessie and Delinica, if you'd like to introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek agreement from this committee on next steps following a literature review covering key areas associated with the Council's responsibilities for regulatory management of quarry dust. I'll take the report as read, but will draw your attention to just some of the key points. The Council made a commitment in the 2021-31 long-term plan to tackle the ongoing concerns for residents with regard to dust around Christchurch. The literature review covers 4 areas: sources and impacts of dust from quarries, regulatory best practice for the control of dust, non-regulatory methods for the control of dust at quarries, and reducing the emissions of dust from quarries. The literature review also identified 6 information gaps that could potentially improve the Council's understanding on the regulation and management of dust impacts from quarries. Generally, there was little support from the public feedback for the Council progressing the literature review recommendations. The key themes from the public feedback included concerns raised about the impact on private and public health from quarry dust, support for the inclusion of setbacks, concerns with previous monitoring programs and support for further investigations into background sources of dust, support for obtaining gravel supplies from rivers instead of land-based quarries, a lack of confidence in the literature review, and the community and stakeholders wanting to work with Council to find a solution. On 5th September 2024, a workshop was held with councillors to discuss key themes arising from the submissions received on the literature review. We have worked closely with Te Whataora through the Joint Work Programme to discuss some of the recommendations outlined in the report including scoping further research into the background levels of dust in Canterbury. We also have with us Dr. Cheryl Brunton, Medical Officer of Health, who is currently sitting at the back. I'll now hand over to Jessie to talk about the recommendations.
Thank you, Delonica, and through you, Madam Chair. Staff have worked with Councillor Swiggs and Chair Pauling just on some of the resolutions that you've seen in the papers that were published on the agenda. Just quickly run through those, and they are in addressing the concerns of the feedback from the community in terms of what we've put forward as approaches to dealing with some of the feedback that we've received. So just in terms of the papers that were published, there's a change to recommendation 1. So this is noting that while the literature review is not suitable for directing specific changes in the regulatory context, it does contain some valuable information and best practice recommendations that we can inform immediate improvements to quarry dust management. Recommendations 2 and 3 were to remain the same. This is in terms of the regional policy statement review and also the review that's underway of the gravel management strategy for river aggregates. In terms of the RPS review, councillors are aware of the recent announcements around the RM reforms. So this will be impacted in terms of that process, but only other alternatives to the RPS review and following its timelines would be approaching councils around their own district plans and looking at setbacks in that respect, or potentially discussing this with central government as well, which staff have been doing, and that's not on the agenda at this point in time with central government through MFE. So our recommendation is that that process is still followed through the RPS review and runs its course, and you'll be receiving further advice on that. As I said, the river gravel management strategy process is underway, and that's running concurrent to this process. When we come to resolutions 4 through A through E, there's a few new additional recommendations there, and some clarity provided in particular to A and B. It's all around best practice guidelines around consenting, compliance and monitoring, using both statutory and non-statutory methods to work with the industry and work with the community and enhance that community engagement, feedback loop, that process to better work towards positive outcomes for our community in that respect. It also involves us working, as Delonica said, with Te Whatu Ora. We already work closely with staff at Te Whatu Ora and CCC, Christchurch City Council, around through the joint work program that we have with those agencies. So we'll build that engagement into the work that we do in developing these best practice approaches. Including some specific advice around applications for resource consent for quarries. Things like reviewing consent conditions, best practice in that respect, and also that proactive and reactive monitoring space. So suggestion would be that in future the consents compliance and monitoring team come back to the regional delivery committee with an update on how things are progressing in that space and what are the best practice improvement aspects of that work as well. Recommendation number 5 stays the same as per the published agenda, and recommendation 6 is around requesting staff to provide updates in relation to number 4, A through E. So we'll bring that back through to the committee, the relevant, where relevant, further reports, particularly the background levels of dust scoping report. That'll come back through this committee, and also in terms of E4E, exploring the opportunities around the community engagement aspects, we can bring a further paper back to the Strategy and Policy Committee in due course as well. So that just explains some of the changes that have arisen post the agenda being published, and further discussions with Councillor Swiggs and Chair Pauling, who have been working with staff in this space to address some of the issues around quarry dust for the community post the literature review being published. So happy to take any questions on any aspects of either the paper, the resolutions, or any other questions you may have. Thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much. I just wonder, given the comments in those sections from 4A to E, whether the recommendation on 6 should say to the relevant committee.
Yeah, I picked up on that. I thought some of that's delivery really rather than strategy. But yeah. So Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The original recommendations and then the modified recommendations seems to reflect the original ones seem to reflect quite a lot of emphasis on the 12 responses you got to the feedback on the literature review submissions. And then the revised recommendations are a completely different flavour. So and my question really is presumably with the literature review submissions, some of those were from industry and some were from residents. Do you have a breakdown of what was what? There were only 11. I mean, if you take out Whakatau, then there's only 11 submissions. I'm interested that we seem to, the paper puts a lot of emphasis on the submission feedback without necessarily reflecting on the overarching sort of discussion that's been had with industry and with the community. And I guess I'm just trying to understand who submitted and where the balance was within those submissions. And they're throwing out the literature review, but now we're going back to incorporating the literature review and the recommendations. I'm just trying to understand that dynamic.
Sure, in terms of the feedback, so we had 12 submitters that provided feedback on the literature review. So we used the information that they provided to support the recommendations that are outlined in the report. The revised recommendations build on the information, on the original recommendations. So they're not too different, but the new recommendations just expand on the initial ones.
I think just to add to that, that the resolutions you see in front of us provide a bit more clarity on things, which is addressing the feedback, as Delenik has said, which raises a number of different aspects, perspectives on this. But I think, yeah, as we've discussed with Councillor Swiggs and Chair Pauling, the resolutions here in front of you just make it a bit more explicit about what we're going to do, building off the literature review, building off our broader understanding of this issue in any case, and looking to improve our practices going forward in that respect to resolve some of the issues that the community has.
And look, just one feedback. I guess my real concerns were, it says, as part of that submission process, there was support for obtaining gravel supplies from rivers instead of land-based quarries. When we had our gravel strategy discussions with industry, the numbers showed that the share of gravel coming from rivers has dropped from 30% to, I think it's 17% of the total quantum of gravel abstracted. And so it looks like the submissions were skewed by less well-informed submissions from the community as opposed to from industry, and we need to balance those objections and you know, those comments. And the reason why our share has dropped is because of our consenting processes have got too slow and expensive. But so I just, you know, there's just a few alarm bells raised by this process.
Okay, Councillor Edge, a question.
Thanks, Chair. My question's related to page 29, item 64, the financial implications. Just wanting to confirm that statement that there is currently no budget allocated in the long-term plan 24-34 for research and investigations relating to quarry dust management. And if you could just confirm that that's the case.
Through you, Madam Chair. So in terms of further research, so we don't have a significant budget in terms of the report into the background levels of dust recommendations. So that was something that we would need to consider going forward in terms of bringing back that scope of work, how much that may cost in terms of the whether we've got the capacity internally to do that or whether that would be something external to the organisation. We do have funding in our budgets for monitoring and investigations and those type of things. That's through our compliance budget. So that's not what that is. This is more research and investigations into the background levels of dust. That's what that's focused on. We would need to bring that scope back as a resolution 4A request staff to do, and that would include the timelines, the work involved, and how much that would cost.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Supplementary, Chair. So what you're saying, am I correct that all those items 4A through to E, which are kind of research orientated or guidance documentations, there's no budget for those?
A lot of the stuff in terms of, say, B around the pre-application guidance, C around the better practice around quarry management planning, working with Te Whāroa on understanding their the health statement impacts and exploring community engagement opportunities. Those are things that we could do internally here at Environment Canterbury. We have staff available to do and capacity to do that work. In particular, the best practice stuff will be part of the broader consents, compliance and monitoring improvements program that we're under, as councillors aware of in that respect. So we'll be able to build that guidance and that understanding into that discussion into that process as well.
Okay, yep.
Just one supplementary. It's kind of picking up on that then. So there is a cost to delivering on these recommendations. And I'm interested to know where that cost might fall. Does it fall within the quarry industry, or does it fall within the ratepayers in terms of being able to address the issues of the quarry industry?
This is us in terms of our own internal processes here at Environment Canterbury about both statutory and non-statutory processes and how we work with both the industry and the community. It's as being a regulator in that space, how do we help support better outcomes through providing better guidance, better processes, better systems to support better improved conditions on resource consents, for instance, refining our practices in that respect. It's what would be expected of an agency like ours, a council like ours, to do that continuous improvement. So we can accommodate within our existing budgets going forward and our existing staff expertise the work around particularly resolutions 4 through B through E. The background level of dust report is a different piece of work that we would need to scope and bring back, and that may have some potential cost associated with it as well.
So Councillor Pauling, Chair Pauling, sorry, I need to get used to that.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to
okay,
speak
later.
to it when it's
Oh,
ready.
right, okay, sorry, I was doing questions first. So Councillor Scott. Yeah, Councillor Scott, yeah.
Like you said, Swigs.
No.
New hearing aids, Monday. Just a question, Jess, regarding 31, that first point in terms of literature review. And unfortunately, I read the recommendations before it became red. So there is some stuff that's going to be picked up on there. But one of the things that, and I also heard Wayne Scott make this mention in, he's head of the quarry industries at a seminar I was at, in terms of the air quality in Canterbury per se is not good anyway. So specifically quarries are part of the issue, but their background dust issue is one of, and that's their first point under 31, is are we any further forward to understanding the background dust issues that we have in Canterbury? I know that park in this parking lot overnight and you go out and write your name on the back on your window. So that's what you do. Yeah, okay.
Through you, Chair. So that's the intent of 4A, is to understand further that. And in respect of Te Whāroa's in the papers, I'm just looking for the section in the paper that talks about the health impacts associated with dust as well, and distinguishing between quarry dust and background levels of dust, different sources of dust. So that's what we want to do, that work, to better understand that. And if there are things that arise from that report that we are then need to take forward, we can bring further reports back to council on those aspects as well.
Okay. Sorry, I've got Councillor Diche online asking a question.
Yes, thank you. Following on from last inquiry, just wanting to be sure that things like the issues that have been reported from people in at Littleton around dust coming off the ports, as well as in Hillsborough and the dust off of the properties that are not tar sealed around those areas. That's been ongoing issues for several years, consistently reported and consistently ignored.
So is there a question? Sorry, Councillor Diche.
No, just wanting to make sure that that's included in this discussion and that those people are heard.
Okay, I think this is, well, Jessie, perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, but this is specifically around the quarrying activity, but we can pick up the other aspects there, Councillor Diche, through a different channel. We'll work that one out. Okay. Do I have any more questions? Oh, Councillor Robinson? Question? Because comments we can do it after this part. No, ask your question if you want to ask a question. No? Sure. Okay. Okay. So in which case then, can I have a mover? Oh, have you got a question, Councillor Swiggs? Oh, you want to move? Okay. Right. So if staff, if you'd like to leave the table, Jessie Delinica, thank you. If you'd like to leave the table. And then we have a mover and a seconder. So Councillor Swiggs, Councillor Chair Pauling, a mover and seconder. And we have now precisely 4 minutes to do debate and carry. Now, I think I would like to suggest that we can at least be 2 or 3 minutes late for the next meeting, because I would really like to finish this if we possibly can. Firstly, the mover, Councillor Swiggs, you want to speak to this now?
I'll be really quick. The changes that we've worked through here were made over the last couple of days in response to the initial thing, and I think it really finds that balance that both the Councillor Mackenzie was talking, and also acknowledging that there are some good things in that PDP report, but it might not be what we were looking for. It does explicitly say we can do some things instead of just waiting for more research. We can look at Te Whatu Ora and work more closely with them to address the legitimate comments and concerns from the community. Proposing practical steps in the quarry management plans is a good thing, and around that non-statutory processes, and we need to look at that. The the RPS, we've got work in there. The RPS, depending on what happens, has a whole suite of things that actually looks at air quality a lot better in Canterbury, which covers what Paul was talking about. We're directing the staff to work a lot more closely with Te Whatu Ora around the updated health statement and what that actually means. I'd love to get a legal opinion on what that means, but we can't ignore that they've said that. And we need to understand that better. I'm really disappointed that we haven't got a little bit further. I think the Ministry of Health Te Whatu Ora could do a lot more in this space, but we need to also think about the Ministry for Environment haven't updated the NES AQ, because that's one of our biggest obstacles in getting a good look at air quality from not just combustion sources, but all sorts of other sources. And I think we need to be looking at that as well, but that's another story. So I had a whole lot more notes, but in the interest of time, I think what we've got to is a good place. And I hope the council will support moving these forward so that we can keep the conversation going with the community and the industry, because together we actually can't, we can't work in isolation. We need to work together.
Thank you. So, Councillor Chair Pauling, do you want to speak now or reserve? No. Yep. Okay.
I'm conscious of time too, Vicky, and happy to. If we have to adjourn, we have to adjourn, because it might be a few other people that want to speak to it.
Yeah,
so look, just really want to acknowledge that this is not just about the literature review; it's about the 3 years of work that we've had from the last LTP, and they want to acknowledge the community and the industry as well as our partners and staff that were involved in that process, including the workshops we had with the community back in 2021, the work that came from this, including increased monitoring that we put in place, increased compliance staff, etc., and then the literature review that's come, really focused on trying to look at some of those best practice mitigation things as well. So that's what I think Dion said. We're trying to pick up that there's the literature review, while it picked up 6 information gaps, actually also included lots of good information about what could be done as well. So we're trying to find that balance about picking up the good stuff from this report and taking that forward. And also just to acknowledge the work that we've done around setbacks, and yep, that's in our RPS, proposed RPS, and that's got its own process to go through, but at least we've done that. We also wrote letters to both Te Whatu Ora and the Ministry for the Environment in the last couple of years, Peter and I did, and that has led to that revised health statement and the conversations with the Whatu Ora and now the ongoing work program with them, as well as obviously raising that setback issue. We didn't raise the AQ, but that is something we could do again, writing another letter, and also acknowledge the gravel management work and the consent guide that's acknowledged in this work as well. And, you know, just noting that I think with that health statement, it's really about how do we as a council and our staff uphold our responsibilities to people and their health with that statement, especially in consenting matters. So that's really what we've got to try and discover with the Whatu Ora, and that's really where 4D comes in. And really the other thing that I think DeLuca mentioned is that across the board, and Ian, to your question, there were 2 specific submissions from those from the quarry industry, and of course Te Whatu Ora did a submission as well, then the rest were from the public. But there was willingness across the board from both industry and the community to work with us, hence why we've put for the non-statutory better practice process in there to work together on that, as well as 4E, so 4C and 4E, to work together with that willingness to go forward. So hence, Dale and I really pushed to see if we could get that included, because we know there's, from the submissions and the workshops we had with both industry and the community, that there's willingness there to work together. So we want to really explore that space. And there's lots of good ideas that come from the submissions and the workshops over time that we think could be explored with industry and as well as with the Whatu Ora. So yeah, really keen to see this supported. Thank you.
You've got Councillor Burns.
Yeah, very quickly, most stuff has been said, but I do want to acknowledge the hard work that the staff have put into this, and also industry, everyone who submitted on it. I want to acknowledge Chair Pauling and Councillor Swiggs too. And while Councillor DJ mentioned something that wasn't around quarrying, as a councillor who has a lot of issues around discharge to air, I'm very mindful that the work that's been involved with this too will actually be very helpful in that type of stuff in different areas around. So again, I just want to thank everyone, and I certainly will be supporting it. Thanks.
Councillor Edge,
Thank you. Just quickly, I certainly the new resolutions there, the way they've been changed, show a different picture. That going forward, we were going to be doing some more investigation, which is really, really good, because I wasn't sure in my mind that the rejecting the literature review process didn't seem to come through in the actual 12 submissions that were being looked at. I actually thought that they were supportive of some of the elements within the literature review. And for me, the two items there in terms of spatial impacts, and the other thing was investigation into the effects on ecology, horticulture, and agricultural land uses. And so the spatial planning thing is more than just setbacks. It is was their best and appropriate places. So I hope that will come through strong in our RPS discussions, because I think that's probably the most important thing. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Robinson, if it's super quick.
It's super quick because a lot of people have said what I wanted to say, but I just want to thank Te Whatu Ora for actually being here in the room too, and acknowledge them. And also, I just wanted to sort of pick up on some of the feedback from some of the submitters is that appropriateness of location for these types of industry. And also I wanted to just say that had we submitted on Minerals Act in government and the processes around abstraction industry, we could have also had a word to say here. So that was another opportunity that we probably missed. So, but other than that, I really want to congratulate Councillor Swiggs and Pauling on their efforts. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you. Right, so can we move to the vote? Oh, Councillor DJ, sorry, you've got your hand up again. Is that right? You want to speak?
Sorry, no, I just got left up.
No worries. Hey, leave your microphone open for this vote, because we need to know that your microphone's off when you vote so we can hear you. So if you just take your microphone off, that's great. Thanks. Okay, so for all those who are in favour of this motion, please say aye. And any against?
Aye.
Any against? No, so that's carried. Thank you. And yeah, just to say thanks for all the work, and sorry it was so rushed in the end. I really apologise for that. And thanks to councillors for helping move that through. Kia ora. Oh, so we're now adjourned until 13th of November. I think it was 3:15, was it? 3:15 on the 13th of November. We're adjourning. Kia ora.